Alright, this is our second video, and it's about making your own soil amendments. Sage, you want to say anything? So if you remember, we had this soils test results, and now we're going to make our fertilizer. So we kind of talked about this upper section, but the soil fertility guidelines is where they're recommending what fertilizer to make, and it's specific to what you're trying to grow. So this is a recommendation for general vegetables that you have to put on the application. So since we last talked, I've worked with Chris O'Brien and learned more about Steve Solomon's approach to soil fertility, which means nutrients rich, not just kind of a cost benefit, least amount of fertilizer for most weight. So nutrient rich has lots of minerals, help with the human condition. And immediately we started talking about the CEC. So the CEC is how much nutrients my soil can hold. So if I need a bunch of nutrients and my soil doesn't hold much, then I can't put as much in. This limits how much I can put in. So I'm just wasting it basically if I put more than this index in. And the index is proportional to organic matter in the soil. It's also proportional to clay content.
This story about the patenting of genes is really a story about, again, like the other stories, about the complete taking over of different domains by commercial values. And what we're really talking about in patenting genes is we're talking about the very basis of our species, of other species, of life itself, being open to commercial ownership, to commercial exploitation, and to being used simply for the purpose of making profit for the shareholders of large corporations. And Jeremy Rifkin concludes this segment by saying, you know, what's really at stake here is, do we see life as having intrinsic value, or do we see life as simply another thing to exploit for profit? And I think that we can add other things to that. We can say, is our social order, are our children, are our schools, are our public domains, is the environment, are these things that have intrinsic value, that we value for what they are and what they contribute to the earth and to our societies and to our lives as individuals? Or are they all domains that exist primarily to be exploited commercially, to create profit, to generate wealth for the shareholders of large corporations?
And there's some other variables to that number. And ideally, pH should be around 7. 6 is even kind of low, so this middle point is 7. So A&L Laboratories, first of all, this test is potentially not the right test if you're trying to go for nutrient rich. So Back here in the back of this book, this is The Intelligent Gardener by Steve Solomon. Back here in the back, it's called the M3 test. So the M3 test is a slightly different test than this test here, but A&L can still do the M3. So Chris said not to worry about it, but next year to get an M3, because this recommendation here, potentially these results would be different. So we can look at that next year. Their recommendations are in pounds per acre, so 3,000 pounds of lime, 120 pounds per nitrogen, and so on in these micronutrients. So what I usually do is work backwards to 5 foot by 100 foot, which is one tilled row, and then in that I can just evenly spread the fertilizer across that after I get a bucket full and figure out how much weight it is per tilled row. And then you'll notice here also, A&L doesn't recommend putting it all at once, all on at once. So they're recommending 2/3 of the nitrogen be side dressed at a later time than planting. So that's, but then the rest of the nutrients would be applied at the time of working up the field, tilling it in, whatever. Okay, so I wanted to also show you the kind of like larger picture of basic nutrients, primary macronutrients, secondary macronutrients, and micronutrients. So these basics are in our atmosphere: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen. These are the main ones that are needed to have any kind of growth and PK. And you won't necessarily get high, nutrient dense crops just doing these, but you would get something. These are secondary macronutrients, and these are the micronutrients. So this is where you get the density and full spectrum of minerals, as well as taste. A lot of times, like with carrots. So Solomon, at the beginning of his book, he has a great introduction as to why he's advocating nutrient-dense foods. He had 2 teeth issues. He went on vacation and saw huge benefits in eating food from a river delta area. And I'm right here. This is kind of like why fertilizer isn't cow manure, goat manure isn't going to get you where you want. Here in the remineralization section, this table here kind of summarizes his approach to soil fertility. So instead of just using standard guidelines, these would be probably maximizing your weight per acre, but wouldn't be looking at soil density. It's not focused on that. It's more on a production. But this is a spreadsheet to make the best tasting carrot ever, which our friends at Big Leaf Farms had years of feedback on having nutrient-rich produce that tastes amazing, and not just healthy, but tastes amazing. So this spreadsheet here, Chris gave me this spreadsheet, and I've kind of adjusted it. So I'll give you an introduction here, and then we'll look at the computer and see if we can get into some of the equations and how you would set this up for yourself. So this right here is the CEC. So that's this 9.4 goes here, and this is proportional to how much you can propose to push in your soil. So if you've got like 15 is ideal and higher. So if you got a 15, you're going to be able to push more nutrients in there because it's going to hold more nutrients. Here's your part per millions. This is the actual soils test here. So here's all these parts per millions, and you times it by 2, soil density factor. There's some interesting numbers to equate that, but that's how you get pounds per acre. So here is, let's look at sulfur. It's 4 parts per million, and that means that my soil has 4 pounds per acre because you times it by this 2, and that continues on. So it's pretty easy conversion. So this part here is what nutrients these inputs have. So this is just off the label. These are the nutrients that these inputs have that I'm going to probably get from concentrates. I'm not looking for the lowest price. I'm just looking for E's, just they're local. But and then this over here is the result of putting this much in. So as you're playing with this amount per acre, it's automatically timesing 80 times 2% of 80. 2% of the 80 pounds is mg. So that is going to be here, 1.6. And so then this is just the will be a fertilizer that I make, and here's the summation of what was already in there and what we're adding is the total proposed plus current total. You minus out what's already in there, and you get this is the proposed amount here. So this concentration of inputs give you this additional fertility, and then this ACL row is this ACL row is the CEC values of how much you can put in to your plot, and then this is the difference between the two. So you're adjusting the proposed amount till it equals what you can actually get out of your soil. And so what you can actually get out of your soil, get into your soil, is based on these equations. So sulfur would be 1/2 of the amount of magnesium. Magnesium is the CEC times 240 times 0.12. So magnesium right here is this equation we'll look at will be coming from Solomon's recommendation right here. So let's go look at that.
But we saw the knife. The witch.
If the witch knew the true meaning of sacrifice, she might have interpreted the deep magic differently. That when a willing victim who has committed no treachery is killed in a traitor's stead, the stone table will crack, and even death itself would turn backwards.
We sent the news that you were dead. Peter and Edmund will have gone to war.
We have to help them.
We will, dear one, but not alone. Climb on my back. We have far to go, and little time to get there. And you may want to cover your ears.
Check. Okay. Here's the spreadsheet. Got it from a friend. We were discussing magnesium, so that the results, the pounds per acre results are over here. In the red is all of the nutritional content of these inputs. So we were looking at magnesium. So 1.6 here would be, we were going to apply 80 pounds of it in an acre, and it's got 2% magnesium, so it's simply 80 times 0.002, which is 1.6 pounds per acre. And then this 430 is from our soils test up here, this part per million. So this 215 times the soil density factor 2, which they have some interesting units. You could look in Solomon's book, The Intelligent Gardener, to read more about that conversion, but it's amazing, 430. So then this is just the summation of the proposed plus the current, and the proposed is minusing out what you already have in there, and then this ACL line is how much my soil can take, which is a new way of looking at soils for me, the CEC. So this is from Solomon's book we were looking at. So it has this, my 9.4 CEC times 240 times 1.2. So the most I can take in my soil is 271. And I'm applying more than I can actually use. And I'm applying this magnesium in the egg lime, so I'm really going for the calcium. So this extra magnesium is kind of inconsequential. And you can see here that my soil can't take that much additional minerals because this is a positive number. The difference between 431 and 271. No, I think these two added together. Let's see what I did. Down here. Oh, that should, yeah. So this is the proposed plus current totals minus what my soil can handle. Is that value there? So I'll host this spreadsheet somewhere for you guys to use. Bye.